On today's edition of Jamaica House Weekly, we share highlights of Prime Minister Andrew Holness representing the island's interests at the 26th staging of the Conference of the Parties in Glasgow, Scotland between October 30 and November 4. I'm Anthony Morgan. Welcome. On November 1, Prime Minister Holness kicked off his engagement at COP26 by calling on world leaders to increase the quality of climate finance available to small island developing states. The Prime Minister says funding is urgently needed to strengthen Jamaica's resilience and reduce its vulnerabilities.
This means boosting grant funding from its current levels and allocating at least half of concessional climate finance to support adaptation and resilience objectives.
Prime Minister Holness was addressing the leaders' event at COP26. It was held under the theme Action and Solidarity, a Critical Decade. Later in the day, the Prime Minister unveiled Jamaica's climate change adaptation and mitigation plan in a national statement at COP26's plenary session. He also pointed out that Jamaica has sponsored a catastrophe bond to finance losses from hurricanes and launched a green bond project on the Jamaica Stock Exchange to fund environmentally sound initiatives. A predictive climate risk tool is also being developed to identify vulnerable areas to guide infrastructure development and investments. On Tuesday, Prime Minister Andrew Holness announced that Jamaica had secured a $1 million grant from the government of India to boost its efforts at building climate resilience. The funds will support the construction of facilities for sustainable agriculture. Mr. Holness made the disclosure as he addressed the launch of the Infrastructure for Resilient Island States high-level event. He also shared the innovative ways the country was utilizing to finance climate adaptation. Among them, the development of a first-of-its-kind climate risk assessment planning tool for major infrastructure investments. Mr. Holness also used his presentation to seek funding for Northern solar-pumped hydroelectric power storage project to end perennial drought on the island.
This would make clean, sustainable use of Jamaica's high concentration of fresh water resources in the north of our country to serve the large population centers and drought-prone agricultural south.
Tuesday also saw the Prime Minister in attendance at the high-level panel for a sustainable ocean economy.
Jamaica will do its part towards the 100% goal as we seek to drive solutions to the climate change crisis and keep our commitment to 1.5.
This includes sustainably managing 100% of national ocean areas by 2025 and 30% of the world's oceans by 2030. Mr. Holness also reiterated calls for increased access to adaptation funding to boost local capacity. Prime Minister Holness also held several bilateral talks on the margins of COP26. He met with Alok Sharma, president of COP26, which was jointly hosted by Great Britain and Italy. The two spoke of how critical the outcome of the conference was to small island developing states such as Jamaica. Similar discussions were had with the Secretary General of the Organization of African, Caribbean and Pacific States. Making the climate agenda a global one was the main talking point in Mr. Holness's conversation with Secretary General of the United Nations and Prince Charles of the United Kingdom. The Prime Minister also discussed ways to strengthen the Caribbean's voice on climate adaptation funding with the President of Guyana and Barbados' Prime Minister. And following Jamaica's participation at COP26, Prime Minister Andrew Holness joined his CARICOM counterparts to call on world leaders to act on their commitment to fund climate resilience in small island developing states. According to Mr. Holness, members from developed countries are yet to live up to their 2009 pledge of $100 billion annually to fund climate adaptation in developing countries. The Prime Minister also called on world leaders to redouble efforts to limit global warming below 1.5 degrees Celsius. This, he argued, was even more urgent as the Caribbean, islands in the Pacific, and other small island states were disproportionately affected by climate-induced weather events.
We continue to lobby. Some lobbying is done on the platforms, and some lobbying is done behind the scenes. But we all use our various avenues of access, various strengths, various responsibilities to carry the message of protecting the very existence of small island developing states who contributed the least to the climate problem, but who stand to face the greatest loss. loss.
And that's it for Jamaica House Weekly. Be sure to join us next time for more of the news stories coming out of the office of the Prime Minister.